and now my grandmother. It was only in the course of the last few months, after accidentally encountering my estranged grandparents' name and address in the phone book, that my mother's mother had emerged from the shadows of the long-buried past into the present. At 86, Beverly Piedmont came into my life as both a puzzle and a blessing. Now she was also a widow. My grandfather and namesake, Jonas Logan Piedmont, was dead at age 91. I turned the key in the ignition, and the Porsche's powerful engine roared to life. With the headlights slicing through the sheets of slanting raindrops, we headed for Newton's family mortuary off Aurora Avenue, where Mr. Lloyd Newton III, at age 60 or so, had been genuinely dismayed when my grandmother had told him in no uncertain terms that there would be no services for my grandfather. "Absolutely not," she had announced determinedly. "At our ages, there aren't that many people still around that we know, and we only see them at weddings or funerals. These days there are a lot more funerals than weddings. Each time someone else turns up missing. It's too depressing." Her decree had brooked no argument. Mr. Newton had been forced to comply with reasonably good grace. "Are you taking care of yourself?" I asked, glancing in her direction as I threaded through evening traffic made worse by the steady downpour. A rain-slicked layer of newly fallen leaves covered the gutters and blocked Seattle storm drains, leaving the streets awash. "Are you eating properly? Getting enough rest?" "Mandy's the one you should be worried about," my grandmother returned with a shake of her head. "That crazy old dog won't eat a thing." I remembered how Mandy used to sit for hours in mute companionship with my stroke-silenced, wheelchair-bound grandfather. She usually stuck close enough to his side that the slightest movement of his faltering hand would bring his flesh into contact with her patiently waiting head. "Try bread and peanut butter," I suggested. "That's how Kelly and Jeremy get their dog Sunshine to take her arthritis medicine. Kelly claims there isn't a dog in the world that doesn't love bread and peanut butter." 6 months earlier, it would have been inconceivable to me that my daughter, Kelly, the complete airhead, as I once disparagingly called her, would end up passing out dog care advice to her great-grandmother. But Beverly Piedmont nodded as though granting Kelly's suggestion serious consideration. "That sounds like a good idea," she said. "I believe I'll give it a try." At the mortuary, we were ushered into Mr. Newton's private, rosewood-furnished office, where we were seated at a small conference table. The man himself appeared a few minutes later, carrying a small metal box in one hand and a file folder crammed with an unruly sheaf of papers in the other. Despite my grandmother's physical presence in the room and at the conference table, Mr. Newton's primary focus seemed to be aimed solely in my direction. Before he said a word, he pushed an invoice toward me across the smooth expanse of polished wood. "We generally ask for payment upon receipt of the ashes, and I've made 2 certified copies of the death certificate. If you need more than 2, just contact my office." My grandmother's bony hand reached out and snagged the bill away from Mr. Newton's fingers before I could grasp it, but she left the death certificates lying where they fell. She groped in her cavernous purse and eventually came up with a checkbook. Meantime, I picked up the death certificates myself and studied the top one. On the line titled Cause of Death, it read, "Complications of flu, pneumonia." I remembered back in August when the news broadcasts had been full of dire pronouncements about how this year's strain of Beijing flu was expected to be particularly bad. People had been urged to get flu shots, especially if they were in one of the at-risk groups. The detective in me, the part that's worked the Seattle Homicide Squad for more years than I care to count, wondered how that one